Joining me in the studio is the Labor MP, member for Reid, Sally Situ, and Liberal MP, member for Cook, Simon Kennedy. It's great to have you both here. Welcome. Simon, I want to go to you first of all. Apparently, a number of MPs in the Coalition Party room, the Liberal Party room, demanding that the party firms up its position on net zero sooner rather than waiting for the 12-month, 9-month process, whatever it is. And you were among that group. Can you tell us what happened?
I won't speak to party room, but I'll tell you my views. Net zero for this Labor government, it's not a policy, it's a slogan. And we know it's not a policy and it's a slogan because they promise price reductions, prices are up. Emissions are flat. And the renewable energy target, they're nowhere near it. So it's not achieving it. They don't have a policy that's getting any results. What's far more important for us is they're not going to meet the 2030 target, but they're about to legislate 2035 targets. And we do need real policy. We need a policy position on that. We know it's going to be somewhere between, we think, 65 to 75%. So we should be starting to think about a policy. And we took a very sensible policy into the last election.
So what do you want your coalition colleagues to do? What should the opposition do now on net zero?
On net zero, but net zero, again, for this government, it's a slogan, not a policy. They're achieving nothing. Their prices are up, emissions are flat, renewable energy. What we should do is be starting announcing policy that will deliver real results. The domestic gas reserve that we announced last election, we should reinstate that as a policy. We modelled that would bring energy prices down 3%. 70% of gas goes to industry. That would see jobs increase, manufacturing increase. That would see energy security increase. And that would give us something incredible to talk about around 2035. I'm not surprised Labor wants to talk about 2050 because what we're living now is a disaster. Every Australian just needs to look at your quarterly energy bills. You need to look at the industry that's closing to realise this is not a policy. It's a slogan.
But you want to firm up. But your argument to your colleagues is you want to firm up the position now. You don't want to wait a year.
And not on net zero again. Tell me what Labor's policy is on net zero. Tell me what. I'd love Sally to explain it because I'll tell you what, it's failing. Prices aren't going up. We're nowhere near our renewable energy target and emissions are flat.
Well, let's get Sally's.
Tell me what their policy is because for them, it's just a slogan. We're going to, I hope, come out with real policy around gas, independent gas, domestic gas reserves, things that will deliver real outcomes for Australian people and Australian businesses, and we need that now.
Let's hear what Sally thinks on this. I mean, obviously, the Labor Party sounds sanguine to the extent that you're happy to have this debate every Monday with Barnaby Joyce's private members bill to scrap net zero.
Look, I think most of your viewers would be surprised that this climate war is being reignited by the coalition. But, you know, credit to them. If they want to have the debate, I think they ought to have the debate in the party room. That debate is well and truly past us now. We have moved on. We have set an ambitious but achievable target. And Simon wants to ask about policies. I'm really happy to talk about policies. We've got our safeguard mechanism in place, which, let me remind you, is a coalition policy, but they just failed to set it at a level which was actually going to reduce emissions. So we've taken their policy, we've actually made it stronger, and we've made it so that emissions will start to reduce. We're going to rewire the nation, so we're building the poles and wires that are going to be needed to move towards more renewable energy. And I think here are some important key facts, right? In our time in government, we've increased solar and wind projects by 45%. We've got a target of 82% renewable energy by 2030, and we are on track to meet that because we are approving more and more.
So you reject the notion that Labor's going to miss its targets, both 2030 and net zero?
Well, I think we should see where the Minister will go with our 2035 targets, but certainly we are on track to meet our targets. 43% by 2030, we are on track, and the modelling shows that, as well as our renewable energy targets. And they all marry together. It's a whole policy that we are putting together, whereas they're still debating whether or not they want to act.
Well, Susan Lee and Dan Tehan say you've got to give them time to get through this policy review process. You don't believe you should give them time?
I'll answer that directly, but firstly, look, it's great Sally has the same thirst for action that I do. I have that action, but sadly, she's not across the detail. This is the Department of Climate Change's emissions. I printed it off 5 minutes before I came here. I heard you ask Dan Tehan. This is how emissions have dropped since 2005 to 2025. The drop under the Morrison Taylor government was 3 times the drop under this Albanese government.
Does that include the COVID impact?
No, look, it includes everything. You can see it's continued.
But the COVID impact does obviously see that huge drop.
It stayed down. I'd love the camera to zoom in on this. It's stayed down and kept there. Under Labor, it's flatlining. So if Sally believes they're on track, if Sally believes the Labor Party is actually on track to reduce the emissions, why does this flatline?
But you do remember, I mean, it fell off a cliff during COVID.
It fell off a cliff, but it didn't bounce back up. It didn't bounce back up. The coalition got us through COVID, kept people safe, kept the economy going and kept emissions flat. Now, under Labor, Chris Bowen's out there about this tiny little drop right
Kieran,
here.
you're right to point out.
Talking about this tiny little drop like it's material. It's immaterial in the reduction. These guys are failing on emissions. This is from Chris Bowen's own department. And I think we need to do a better job as the coalition. The media needs to help us in actually telling the Australian people what is going on.
Okay, let's hear from Sally.
Well, I mean, Kieran, you're right to point out that the graph that Simon is pointing to does cover a significant chunk of the COVID period. So, of course, your emissions are going to be down when industry is being shut down, when people couldn't go to work, when people aren't flying around. That does reduce emissions. So that COVID period is an artificial point on that graph, but what we should be looking at is the trend overall and also the renewable energy that we are adding to the energy market. And so that means that there's more solar, there's more wind. And
I do want to ask Simon, though, sorry to interrupt, but I want to get an answer on that question about, because Dan Tehan was on the program earlier. He says they've got the process, they're going through it, backbenchers know about the process. You're not happy with it?
No, Dan Tehan has my full support. Can I say Dan Tehan has said, and Susan have said to everybody, his door is open. I've personally gone and seen Dan. I've seen Dan see dozens of my colleagues. Dan is running a process to get to our final 2050.
But you want him to rush it?
No, I don't want him to rush it at all. No,
speed it up.
In the next few weeks, the government is going to try and legislate a 2035 target. We will have to have a position on that. And I was listening to Dan on this program just a few minutes ago, and I didn't hear Dan say anything different from that. I get that we want to try and say, hey, there's a crisis. I get Labor desperately wants to talk about it when the graph looks like that, when the trend's the same the whole way down until we get to Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen on emissions. Now, the price trend looks opposite, looks like the reverse of this. I get they want to talk about us, and I get we're allowing a distraction for them to do it. But Dan Tehan has my full support. I'm sure Dan will land a position around 2035 in the next few weeks, as will Susan. I express that, and I think it's a distraction that unfortunately some of us, and I think the Labor Party and some of the media is falling into, to talk about a slogan in 25 years' time to distract what's going on today and what's going to happen in the next 5 years. How are they going to sign up?
Is it just a slogan, net zero?
Well, it's our goal. Like, we have policies to get us there. It's hard to imagine how the coalition are going to address climate change when they can't even agree on the goal of net zero. And we've got ambitious targets, but we've got a way to get there. And that's the important point here. We've got policies in place that are working. We've got policies in place that are adding renewable energy into our grid. They had a policy of nuclear. Now they're debating whether or not they want to get to net zero.
Are you worried, just finally, as a member for Cook and you know, some have said that there'd be a threat from the Teals at some point. You know, a lot of your voters want action on climate change. If you dumped net zero, beyond the debate about what you're saying, and I get what you're saying, the government's all slogan, there's no action, it's not meeting its own agenda. But internationally, even, you know, locally, in terms of the way Australians see this issue, net zero has become synonymous with climate action, hasn't it?
For sure. And net zero climate action, I believe in, and the coalition believes in. Net zero is an admirable target that we should keep, but don't be distracted. Do not be distracted from what's going on in our economy now. Prices are up, emissions are flat. They went down all under the coalition. They're flat under Albanese. The renewable energy target's nowhere close. And what matters is the next 5 years. So don't be distracted about what's going to happen in 25 years. You think about 25 years ago whether you could predict AI or what's going on now. We will have technology breakthroughs. We will, just as we have with solar and wind, and there'll be others we can never predict. We're not backing away from net zero. But what we are doing is what matters here and now. That is what the debate is about, and I understand why Chris Bowen and Anthony Albanese don't want to have that debate, and I hope we don't let them win on that.
Simon Kennedy and Sally Situ, great to see you both. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran.